The Cleveland Browns organization just dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming, and let me tell you, the fallout is absolutely massive. Dillon Gabriel, the quarterback who was supposed to be the future of this franchise, has officially been benched for the remainder of the— Yes, you heard that right. The kid who came into the NFL with all the hype, all the expectations, and all the confidence in the world is now watching from the sidelines as his dreams crumble before his very eyes. This isn't just a benching, folks. This is a career-altering moment that could define the rest of Dillon Gabriel's time in professional football, and quite frankly, it might be the beginning of the end for several people in that Browns organization. The news broke early this morning, and Cleveland insiders are reporting that the writing has been on the wall for weeks. But here is where things get absolutely wild. This announcement comes just days after Gabriel's girlfriend went on a social media rant that had the entire football world buzzing. Was she already aware that her man's career was about to take a nosedive? Did she see this coming and decide to go out swinging on his behalf? Or did her public outburst actually accelerate the Browns' decision to pull the plug on the Dillon Gabriel experiment? The timing is just too suspicious to ignore, and the drama surrounding this situation is thicker than Cleveland fog rolling off Lake Erie. Dillon Gabriel's journey with the Cleveland Browns has been nothing short of a disaster from day one. When the organization drafted him, there was optimism. There was hope that maybe, just maybe, they had finally found their franchise quarterback. But as the weeks turned into months, it became painfully obvious that Gabriel was not ready for the NFL. His performances on the field were inconsistent at best and downright terrible at worst. Fans were frustrated, analysts were perplexed, and the coaching staff was reportedly at their wits' end trying to figure out how to get anything productive out of their starting quarterback. But here is what really gets people fired up about this whole situation. Many believe that Dillon Gabriel should never have been given the starting job in the first place. The competition during training camp and the preseason made it abundantly clear that there were other options on the roster who were more prepared, more talented, and more deserving of leading this team. Yet for reasons that still baffle football minds across the country, the Browns brass decided to hand Gabriel the keys to the offense. Kevin Stfansky, the head coach who has been under tremendous pressure himself, made the call to start Gabriel over other candidates, most notably Shedeur Sanders, who had shown flashes of brilliance whenever he got the opportunity to step on the field. The decision to start Gabriel over Sanders was questionable from the beginning. Scouts, analysts, and even former players were scratching their heads wondering why Cleveland was so committed to a quarterback who clearly wasn't ready. Some speculated that organizational politics played a role. Others suggested that Stfansky had too much pride invested in Gabriel to admit he made a mistake. Whatever the reason, the Browns stuck with Dillon Gabriel far longer than they should have, and the results speak for themselves. The team struggled offensively, games were lost that should have been won, and fan frustration reached a boiling point. Now let us talk about Kevin Stfansky for a moment, because his role in this debacle cannot be understated. Many are arguing that Stfansky actually hurt Dillon Gabriel more than he helped him. By throwing a young, unprepared quarterback into the fire and refusing to pull him, even when it was obvious things weren't working, Stfansky may have irreparably damaged Gabriel's confidence and his reputation around the league. Gabriel looked lost on the field. His decision-making was poor, his accuracy was inconsistent, and his ability to read NFL defenses was simply not there. Instead of recognizing these deficiencies and making adjustments, Stfansky continued to force-feed Gabriel first-team reps and kept him as the starter week after week. The question everyone is asking now is, why did it take so long? Why did it require Dillon Gabriel getting injured for the Browns to finally turn to Shedeur Sanders? Sanders had been waiting in the wings, proving himself in limited action, showing that he had the arm talent, the mobility, and the football IQ to succeed at this level. Yet he was kept on the bench while Gabriel struggled. It is a decision that could haunt this organization for years to come, especially if Sanders goes on to have success now that he's finally been given his chance. Browns insiders are already suggesting that Sanders could win out the remainder of the schedule if everything falls into place. That is a bold statement, but it is one that has merit when you look at Sanders' skill set compared to Gabriel. Sanders has that elite accuracy that Mary Kay Cabot mentioned in her analysis. He has got a strong arm, excellent touch on the ball, and perhaps most importantly, he has got that intangible IT factor that great quarterbacks possess. When you watch Sanders play, you see confidence. You see a player who believes he belongs on that field and who has the talent to back up that belief. But let us pump the brakes for just a second and address the elephant in the room. The Browns' offense has been absolutely horrendous this season regardless of who's been playing quarterback. Jerry Jeudy, who was supposed to be a #1 receiver and a security blanket for whoever was under center, has been virtually invisible. Joe Flacco, who had success with this team in the past, even said that as Jerry goes, so goes this off. Well, Jerry hasn't been going anywhere productive this season, and that has been a massive problem. The situation between Shedeur Sanders and Jerry Jeudy has also been interesting to watch. There was a sideline confrontation between the two that caught everyone's attention. Jeudy was reportedly getting in Sanders' face about something, which led to Michael Irvin going off on his show about how disrespectful that was. Irvin made a great point when he said that the quarterback is not your enemy. You can't be coming at your signal caller like that, especially in front of cameras and teammates. It creates division, it destroys chemistry, and it makes everyone uncomfortable. Jeudy caught a beautiful pass from Sanders just last week, but instead of building on that momentum and that connection, he chose to create drama. That is not how you build a winning culture, and that is certainly not how you support a young quarterback who is trying to find his footing in this league. Now back to Dillon Gabriel. What does the future hold for him? According to Browns insiders, Gabriel could remain with the organization as a backup quarterback, either for Cleveland or potentially for another team. But here is the reality. If Kevin Stfansky gets fired, which many believe is inevitable at this point, Dillon Gabriel is probably gone too. The two are linked together at this point. Stfansky hitched his wagon to Gabriel, and when one goes down, the other is likely to follow. The Haslam family, who owns the Cleveland Browns, has an interesting history when it comes to firing coaches. According to reports, they have never outright fired a head coach by saying you're no longer part of this organization. Instead, they have historically allowed coaches to find other opportunities and essentially let them leave on their own terms. It is a classy way of handling things, but it also means that sometimes coaches stick around longer than they should. Could this be the year that the Haslams finally pull the trigger and make a definitive statement? Could they actually fire Kevin Stfansky outright and send a message that the current direction of this franchise is unacceptable? Time will tell, but the pressure is mounting with every passing week. What is particularly frustrating for Browns fans is that this entire situation could have been avoided. Going all the way back to June, it was obvious to anyone paying attention that Dillon Gabriel was not the guy. The warning signs were there during organized team activities, they were there during training camp, and they were definitely there during the preseason. Yet the organization chose to ignore those signs and move forward with Gabriel as their starter. It was a decision based on hope rather than evidence, and that is never a recipe for success in professional football. Dillon Gabriel's weaknesses were exposed early and often, and unfortunately for him, those exposures happened on national television in front of millions of viewers and under the intense scrutiny of social media. Every bad throw, every poor decision, every sack taken because of a failure to read the defense was documented, analyzed, and criticized. That is the reality of being an NFL quarterback in the modern era, and Gabriel wasn't prepared for that level of pressure and criticism. But let us be fair for a moment, this isn't entirely Dillon Gabriel's fault. Yes, he didn't perform well, but he was also put in a terrible position by the coaching staff and front office. They drafted him knowing he needed development time. They saw during the off-season program that he wasn't ready, yet they threw him into the starting lineup anyway, surrounded him with an underperforming supporting cast, and expected him to somehow figure it out on the fly. That is not how you develop a young quarterback. That is how you destroy one. The proper way to develop a quarterback is to bring him along slowly, let him learn the speed of the NFL game from the sidelines, give him limited action in games that are already decided, and gradually increase his responsibilities as he demonstrates readiness. The Browns did none of that with Dillon Gabriel. They went from 0 to 100, and the results were predictable. Gabriel looked overwhelmed, overmatched, and completely out of his depth. His confidence was shattered, his mechanics broke down, and by the end of his time as the starter, he was playing scared football. That is on them. Mary Kay Cabot, the longtime Browns reporter who has covered this team for decades, has been particularly interesting to listen to throughout this saga. She has made some comments that have raised eyebrows and sparked controversy. First, she referred to Shedeur Sanders as fun-sized, which many interpreted as a dig at his height. Then, in her most recent analysis, she suggested that Sanders needs to stay humble and not feel like he has arrived just because he wins a game or two. That comment rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because confidence is exactly what you want in a quarterback. Sanders has earned the right to feel confident. He has proven himself at every level, from high school to college to now getting his opportunity in the NFL. The last thing he needs is for people to be trying to temper his confidence or suggest that he should feel less sure of himself. This brings up an interesting point about how quarterbacks are evaluated and discussed in the media. There seems to be a double standard at play. When certain quarterbacks display confidence and swagger, they are praised for being leaders and having that alpha mentality. But when other quarterbacks do the same thing, they are criticized for being arrogant or told they need to stay humble. It is inconsistent, and it is something that deserves to be called out. Shedeur Sanders has every right to feel confident. He has worked incredibly hard to get to this point. He has overcome obstacles and skeptics his entire career, and now he is finally getting his shot to prove he belongs in the NFL. Let the man be confident. Let him have swagger. That is what great quarterbacks have. Michael Irvin, the Hall of Fame wide receiver and current analyst, weighed in on the Jerry Jeudy situation, and his comments were absolutely on point. Irvin emphasized that the quarterback is not your enemy. You don't confront your quarterback on the sideline in front of everyone. If you have an issue, you handle it privately, like professionals. You have a conversation, you work through whatever the problem is, and you move forward together. That is how championship teams operate. Jeudy's decision to confront Sanders publicly was immature, counterproductive, and frankly, it raises questions about his professionalism and his commitment to the team's success. Irvin also pointed out that Sanders threw Jeudy a beautiful pass the previous week, a perfectly placed ball that allowed Jeudy to make a nice catch. But instead of coming off the field excited about the connection they were building, Jeudy was doing his own thing, not really celebrating with his quarterback or showing appreciation for a great throw. That is not how you build chemistry with your signal caller. That is not how you develop the kind of relationship that leads to productive offensive football. If Jeudy wants to be a number one receiver, if he wants to be the guy that his quarterback trusts in crucial moments, he needs to change his approach and his attitude. The Browns' offensive struggles this season have been comprehensive and devastating. It is not just the quarterback position that has been problematic, although that has certainly been a major issue. The offensive line has been inconsistent in protection. The running game has been largely ineffective. The receivers haven't been able to create consistent separation. The play calling has been questioned. It has been a perfect storm of dysfunction, and it has resulted in one of the worst offenses in the entire. That is why evaluating Shedeur Sanders fairly over these final games is going to be challenging. Even if he plays well, people will question whether he is actually good or whether he is just better than the incredibly low bar set by Dillon Gabriel. This is the trap that the Browns find themselves in now. They need to figure out if Shedeur Sanders is their quarterback of the future, but they are trying to make that evaluation while surrounding him with a broken offense and a dysfunctional situation. It is not ideal and it is not fair to Sanders, but it is the reality of the situation. The Browns absolutely must know before the 2026 NFL Draft whether they need to use a high pick on a quarterback. If they can't definitively say that Sanders is the guy, they might need to draft another quarterback and start this entire painful process over again. That would be a nightmare scenario for Browns fans who have endured decades of quarterback instability and disappointment. The broader implications of this Dillon Gabriel benching extend beyond just one player's career. This situation reflects poorly on the Browns' organizational decision-making. It raises serious questions about Kevin Stfansky's judgment and his ability to evaluate quarterback talent. It highlights problems with the team's offensive philosophy and execution. It exposes dysfunction in the locker room and issues with player leadership. These are all massive concerns that go far beyond whether Dillon Gabriel starts or sits for the remainder of this season. Jimmy Haslam and the Haslam family are reportedly frustrated with the current state of affairs, and rightfully so. They have invested enormous amounts of money into this franchise. They have hired what they thought were the best coaching minds. They have drafted players they believed would become stars. They have made big free agency splashes, and yet the results remain the same year after year. The Browns continue to underachieve, continue to disappoint, and continue to give their passionate fan base reasons to be frustrated and angry. At some point, ownership has to step in and demand accountability. They have to make difficult decisions about the future direction of this franchise, even if those decisions are uncomfortable or go against their natural instincts. Just months ago, he was a starting NFL quarterback with the opportunity to establish himself as a franchise cornerstone. Now he has been relegated to the bench, his confidence is likely shattered, and his future in professional football is in serious jeopardy. The NFL is not a forgiving place for quarterbacks who fail in their first opportunity. Second chances are rare, and they typically only come in backup roles or with teams that are desperate for any warm body who can take a snap. That is not the career trajectory that Gabriel envisioned when he was drafted, but it is the reality he now faces. The relationship between Gabriel and his girlfriend, who went on that now infamous social media rant, is also worth examining. In the modern age of social media, the significant others of professional athletes have platforms and voices that can impact their partners' careers, for better or worse. In this case, her decision to go public with her frustrations, whatever they may have been about, added unnecessary drama and attention to an already difficult situation. Did it directly contribute to the Browns' decision to bench Gabe? Probably not in a direct sense, but it certainly didn't help. It added another layer of distraction, another headline, another reason for people to question whether Gabriel had the maturity and stability to be a franchise quarterback. Looking ahead to the remainder of the 2025 season, all eyes will now be on Shedeur Sanders. Can he come in and immediately turn this offense around? Can he develop chemistry with receivers who have been underperforming all season? Can he operate behind an offensive line that has struggled to provide consistent protection? Can he make the kinds of plays that get his teammates excited and believing again? These are the questions that will define the next several weeks for the Cleveland Browns. The schedule certainly provides opportunity. There are winnable games remaining, and if Sanders can catch fire and lead this team to victories, it would completely change the narrative surrounding this franchise. Instead of talking about another lost season and organizational dysfunction, we'd be talking about a young quarterback who came in and saved the day. We'd be discussing whether the Browns finally found their guy. We'd be looking ahead to next season with optimism rather than dread. But Sanders also needs support from his teammates, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. Jerry Jeudy needs to be a professional and be the #1 receiver this team needs him to be. The offensive line needs to step up their protection and give Sanders time to operate. The running backs need to be more effective to take pressure off the passing game. The coaching staff needs to put Sanders in positions to succeed and not ask him to do too much too soon. If all of those things can come together, there is a real chance that these Browns could finish the season strong and build some momentum heading into the offseason. Regardless of how the rest of the season plays out, there are serious questions about whether he should remain as head coach of the Cleveland Browns. His handling of the quarterback situation has been questionable at best and disastrous at worst. His offensive philosophy, which worked so well early in his tenure, has become stale and ineffective. His ability to get the most out of his players has been called into question. While he is a good coach in many respects and a quality human being by all accounts, sometimes a change is needed. Sometimes a fresh voice and a new perspective are what an organization requires to take the next step. The Browns may have reached that point with Stfansky. The Browns fan base, which is among the most loyal and passionate in all of professional sports, deserves better than what they have been given this season. They deserve a team that competes, that plays with passion and intelligence, that makes them proud to wear the orange and brown. They deserve organizational stability and competent decision-making. They deserve a franchise quarterback they can believe in for the next decade. Whether Shedeur Sanders can be that guy remains to be seen, but at least now he is finally getting his opportunity to prove it. As for Dillon Gabriel, this chapter of his career is closed for now. Whether he gets another opportunity with the Browns or elsewhere in the NFL depends on how he responds to this adversity. Does he sulk and point fingers, or does he put his head down and work to improve every aspect of his game? Does he learn from this experience and come back stronger, or does he allow it to define and limit him? These are the kinds of character questions that every athlete faces at some point in their career, and how Gabriel answers them will determine whether he ever gets another shot at being a starting NFL quarterback. The Cleveland Browns' decision to officially bench Dillon Gabriel for the remainder of the 2025 season is a watershed moment for this franchise. It is an admission that a mistake was made. It is an acknowledgement that change was necessary. It is a gamble on Shedeur Sanders being the answer they have been searching for. And it is a clear message that patience has run out with the current state of affairs. Whether this decision leads to better results on the field remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the Dillon Gabriel era in Cleveland is over, and whatever comes next has to be better than what we have witnessed so far this season. Was the Browns' decision to stick with Dillon Gabriel for as long as they did a massive organizational failure? Is Shedeur Sanders really the answer at quarterback, or is he just going to be another in a long line of failed experiments in Cleveland? Should Kevin Stfansky be fired immediately, or does he deserve a chance to finish out the season? And what about Jerry Jeudy confronting his quarterback on the sideline? Was that inexcusable, or is that just passion and competitive fire? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I want to hear what you have to say about this absolute circus happening in Cleveland. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the Dillon Gabriel benching situation, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe so you never miss another video, and ring that notification bell so you are always first to know when we drop fresh content. We have got more breaking news, more drama, and more analysis coming your way. So stick around. Until next time, keep your head up, shake off the haters, and remember that in the NFL everything can change in an instant. Peace.